A friend of mine asked me about doing a podcast on the different sexuality identities that the young kids today are using. My name is Eric, and welcome to the craziness that lives inside my head. I want to state for the records, and I want to put a warning before I start my views. These are my views, and what I'm about to say in this podcast may not be what people want to hear. People may really hate what I have to say, and that's fine. But my friend asked me my opinion on all these sexuality identifications going around, and I said they're confusing. I didn't want to, not that I didn't want to do a podcast on it. I mean, he asked me, why don't I? So I decided to do this podcast. And in this podcast, I'm going to tell you how I feel. And I feel the way I felt back in the day. Back in the day, and I'm talking about in the 70s, for my experience, you had straight, gays, and bis. You had some guys would say they're tries. Try means they'll try anything. But then there is a category we had back then. It was called freak or super freak. A freak is basically a guy would say, well, I'm a freak. Usually, I'm going to be honest with you, I've heard that terminology usually for women when they say, oh, she's freaky. Freaky means that if a guy go out with her, chances are you're going to have her and her girlfriend. I mean, that's my experience. That's all I'm talking about. Then you had super freaks. I think Rick James made a record called Super Freaks. And super freaks, well, I think all these new categories or these new sexual identities fall into super freak category because they're freaky. You don't know where they're coming from. They could be straight, they could be gay, they could be loving, hating. A super freak is someone who really is someone who's really into sexuality, into whatever sexuality there is they're into. They could be straight, they could be gay. But usually when you use that terminology, freak, it usually means stuff like S&M, you know, where they tie you up, or they like to be tied up, they like to be whipped, and, you know, that was what they were calling freaks. But I did look up some of the categories that they have out here that these young kids want to, and I want to be honest with you. And someone said to me, and I've had someone who written on my podcast about being respectful. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'll try to be respectful. But there is such a thing as ridiculous. And if society has it one way, and you don't fit into what society category, label you as, either you accept it or you can, like, for instance, if I'm on the phone, and this happened a lot of times with me even now, I could be on the phone talking to customer service, and I'll have the guy or the woman will say, oh, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. Well, I'm not going to get upset. I'm not a man. But if my voice sounds like a man, what am I supposed to do? I could, but I just let it go. I had a client, and I'm going to be honest with you. I had a client, and when I went to pick my client up, I asked her, did she want to use the girls' room, the ladies' room? She said no. So I got her in the room. I told her what to do, and I walked out. And what did she take her clothes off? Get settled in. Went back into the room. When I unrobed her back, it wasn't a she. It was a he. I mean, what I'm going to do? Start, oh, sorry, sorry, sorry. Well, if she didn't have a problem with it, or he didn't have a problem with it, then what was I, just let it go. Sometimes these things are so. Sometimes you can't always be politically correct. And I don't want to be politically correct. I mean, if I see it, I see it. I mean, if you say I'm wrong, I shouldn't have said that, then you explain to me why I shouldn't have said it. But don't expect for me to know every political nuance that I'm supposed to say. I mean, I've known, I've worked with guys. If you heard them talk, you would swear, you would swear they're gay, or something is wrong with them, and basically there's nothing wrong. Have you ever saw Seinfeld when the high talker? You had a lot of high talking men, and you have a low talker. There's some women that talk really raspberry, and if you didn't see them, you would never. But I mean, I don't know what kind of podcast to make. I don't know what to make of it. All I'm saying is there's a lot of new sexual identities, classification going around. I don't know what to tell you. If I see you and you talk to me, we talk to me, and if I think or you dress whatever the way you dress, some of these kids dress really crazy. I shouldn't say, I mean, we dress crazy too back in the day, but if it looks like a man, I'm going to say a man. If it looks like a female, I'm going to say a female. And if I don't know which way is which, I will just choose. Because in society, you either a male or a female. And if you dress that androgynous, they call it, if you dress like that, then all I could say, it is what it is. Sometimes back then, when you have people you couldn't tell whether they're male or female, sometimes you just say, there's a freak. My name is Eric, and thank you for listening to the craziness that lives inside my head.